I'm Matthew Kerbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show. It looks like we're live. Okay, I hear myself talking now. We are, in fact, live. All right, so with that, I will welcome everybody to the show. Remind the podcast only listeners that if you wanted to see me being silent and being awkward on camera, that they need to also go click the bell on LinkedIn so they see when I'm going live so that they can get a little bit of the behind the scenes look. For those who are joining live, in particular, you've already seen on camera here, I have Jonathan Mast with me. Jonathan, say hello. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to chatting about AI.
Oh man, and my audience knows I love chatting AI. I've been arguing for a long time the billable hour is not the most profitable way that lawyers in particular, but really any professionals can make money, and it totally disaligns incentives with their clients, with their customers. But when AI hit the
Absolutely.
scene, I mean, this was when AI hit the scene, Gen AI hit the scene. You know, it was game over for that. It became the strongest argument for it. So I'm thrilled to have you here today. I've been catching up on a lot of what you're putting out there, but for my audience who may not have found you yet, tell us, like, who is Jonathan Mast? What are you doing out there? And how did you even become this expert in AI?
Well, I'm a quintessential ADD entrepreneur. I've been in digital marketing for the last 15 to 20 years. And when generative AI came out, when ChatGPT basically released the interface, my ADD-ness went, oh my, like I wanted to sing hallelujah. I have just found my tool because it allows me to do things so much faster. And again, being focused on very similar to what you said, I've been a consultant and a coach most of my life. And so I'm always focused on value, not on hours, because if I trade hours, the wrong thing always happens. Then the clients are always wondering, did it really take you that long? Is it really going to take you that many hours? They don't want to pay the hours and they're just worried about the hours. Versus if I say, you know what, it's 5 grand. And as soon as the client agrees, now they want to know why it's not done already. They don't care whether I put any hours into it or not. They just want to know why it's not done. And AI lets me do that. I can now take my skill and experience, and I'm an old fart. I'm 55 years old. I can take that school and or that experience and that skill, and I can amplify it with AI. And so that's one of the things that got me so incredibly excited. I pivoted into AI and said, look, I missed bottled water when I thought that would be a thing before it was, and I missed many other things. I'm going all in on AI, and I'm going to teach people how to leverage it so that they can literally amplify their skill and experience. And so today, that's what I do. I spend most of my time doing group coaching, helping businesses and entrepreneurs and small business leaders really learn, how do I leverage AI to make more time, because we all have more to do than we have time. How do we do it to hopefully make some more money along the way? And also, how do we do it to add more value to our clients? Because today's marketplace is more competitive than it's ever been. And I need to add more value to keep those clients around. And the cool thing is, we can do all of them with AI. And when I talk AI, I'm not talking about, Matthew going out and buying the latest and greatest tools. I'm literally talking about using the standardized tools that we all hear about, things like ChatGPT, and how literally we can save not just minutes, but hours in a given day and provide more value. So that's what I do nowadays, and I love it.
Yeah, and I'll say it. We could save not just hours, we could save days. We could save
Oh yeah.
weeks. I mean, we could save months worth of work for like some classic manual labor stuff, in particular like an industry like law, where sometimes it's just let's throw people at it and also
Hmm.
bill all the hours for it as possible, right? So I foresee major disruption, and that's why I'm glad to have you on the show to talk more about that. But even before we get there, we didn't get a chance to in our pre-going live conversation. Now that I'm learning like more about your background from you directly, because you got tons of stuff out there, and like everybody,
Yeah.
if you go into perplexity.ai and say who is Jonathan Mast, and it will give you all the like the YouTube channel. Like that's how I prepared for this conversation, right? Like I asked Perplexity to tell me, and it gave me a great summary. So go do that. But have you heard, we haven't had a chance to have this conversation. Have you heard of Jonathan Stark and ditching hourly?
Yeah, I have. I don't know him, but I've heard of him. Yes.
Okay. Well, as soon as we're done, I'm going to make sure I introduce the both of you because everything you just talked about is super aligned with his vision and stuff. And I've been on his podcast. He's been on mine. And so, and I think you guys are around the same age too. And I don't know if he grew a beard, it would be white as well.
Well, the best thing about being male is the fact that now gray hair makes me wise. So, it's an unfair advantage we have over the women in the audience.
Well, and that's one of your companies is Whitebeard Strategies, right?
That is,
That's
yeah, that's my
that
primary firm. Yeah.
okay. All right. And that's the idea behind that was let's lean in to the white beard.
I grew this actually when my granddaughter was born. So my oldest granddaughter's 7. I started growing a beard then just because I thought it'd be fun. She still at 7 loves to grab on it and pull on it and everything else. And grandpa's not getting rid of the beard. And it's become part of who I am at this point. So as my wife likes to point out, when we go places and people recognize me, she goes, there are not many people that are 6'3", weigh 350 pounds and have a great big white beard. And I said, really? I thought that we were all over. So
And it's very seasonal, I will say, as we're
it
coming
is.
off of
Yeah.
the holiday season. The graphic of the Whitebeard Strategies fellow on the website, very Pixar-esque. Like, was that? I'm
Yeah.
assuming you used AI to help come up with that kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
we did. We used Midjourney to create that and work through to try to create. I love Pixar type characters, and so that's kind of goes along with my brand. And we just created some white bearded fellows and added them on and had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, yeah. Although that phone that he's using, is that an Android or an iPhone or just nondescript?
I have no idea. I'm admittedly an iPhone guy. I'm a Mac guy, like you and I
Okay.
were talking prep. But yeah, I don't know what Midjourney put in his hand. It was a little weird.
Right, right. No, that's great, and that also is a major blind spot for me, right? Because in the legal space, language that's what we trade in. That's what lawyers trade in. So I've come to like learn everything I can about the language-based Gen AI models, and with the exception of some luck I've had with Gemini's image generation, I have just been terrible. So I have a lot to learn in that space. But another thing that's a major blind spot for me that when I've seen some of your content on YouTube that you're doing a really good job at is you're looking at these aggregators like Poe, where you
Hmm.
can plug and play different models. And so I know it's a blind spot for me. So I'm learning, in addition to my audience, about tell us more about these aggregators, like how you
Sure.
find them useful, maybe some of their pitfalls of like what they can't do certain things that the APIs don't allow, like give us like a high level primer, and then let us know if there's
Sure.
any videos that you could point us to that you did recently that would be good for folks to check
So
out.
yeah, the AI aggregators is really a fairly simple model. We all know that if we want, well, we probably know that if we want to go out and use any of the AI, we need to pay $20 a month to use ChatGPT and $20 a month to use Claude and $20 a month to use Perplexity. And all those fees start adding up really quickly. And we're spending hundreds of dollars a month. Now, I think it's worth it for what I do. But at the same point, there's a lot of people, especially if you're getting into AI, that may be going, I don't want to spend that kind of money. So the aggregators generally for around $20 a month give you the ability to get access to a number of different models. All of the models from OpenAI, all the models from, which is ChatGPT, by the way, all the Google models, all the Anthropic models, which are Claude, the Meta or Facebook models, which are Llama, and other models on top of that. Plus, they generally give you image generation and sometimes video and music. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop. You get to have everything for a low monthly price.
Hmm.
They're overall, they're great tools. Now, I will say that my favorites, Poe is a very good one, by the way. If you're familiar with Poe.com, it's very good. My 2 favorites are actually Magi, Magai, and Ruby, Rubi. And the reason is I just like their interface better. Poe is great, but they're doing so much on Poe that when I go there, my ADD brain goes, I don't know where to go. And so it's just there's so much going on. Great tool, it works very well. But that's one of my big concerns there. But basically, what you do then is I can go in and I can try out a query in ChatGPT. I can try it out in Claude. I can try it out in Gemini. I need to create an image. I can do that, and I'm not paying for all the various tools in order to do that. So they're great. If you want to learn more about it, I've done reviews on a number of them on my YouTube channel. And versus sharing that, I think we're going to share my link at the end. Just go to my website at jonathanmast.com, and I've got links to everything there. But it's a great way, especially if you're getting started, or maybe you've got a staff member on your team. Maybe you're a small attorney and you've got 2 or 3 people on your team and they need access to AI, and sometimes they need Claude and sometimes they need ChatGPT, and I don't really want to buy 100 different accounts. Well, Magi, for example, which others can do too, but I can set up a team account. So I can pay $60 a month or $50 a month or whatever I choose, and I can dole it out to my team, and I can even control how much they can use it. And now they can have access and use it at work. And I don't have to, again, maintain a bunch of different profiles and spend lots of different money and track all that. So they can be really good tools. Now, there are some downsides because they're buying all that usage via an API key from the manufacturer. There's limits. You can only use so much. One of the things I love about Ruby, RUBI, is the fact that even if you cap out, they give you the base models, which still cost them money, but they give you unlimited use. So if you're the 20th of the month and you're like, drat, I just ran out of use, you don't have to pay them more money. You just know that for a week, you're going to get the we'll call it the high school senior model, and maybe not the college senior model. But for most of what we do, that probably works okay anyway, and it's perfectly fine and works super well. So that cap is the one thing to be aware of, is that you are going to run into that. Where they don't talk about that with ChatGPT and with Claude as much, but there's caps there as well. And if you've ever used them a lot, you'll get a message. It'll say your usage is limited for the next 3 hours or the next 4 hours. So there are caps everywhere, but they're a little bit lower on the aggregator models.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. Yeah, and again, it's sort of a blind spot for me. So to give you a little bit of background, because where I might know just a little bit more than you, Jonathan, is on the
Please.
the legal AI side of things. And
Yeah.
so what I have found with these legal AI tools, and I'm curious to know if the aggregators do something like this, is they just pick the best model for the particular task that I'm asking it to do. Because
Hmm.
they are essentially aggregators too. Now, some of them started out as just GPT wrappers, and I didn't give you this background, but let's assume, I mean, what is an average understanding of modern Gen AI? Like, average being, way better than most people. Let's say my audience has an average, slightly above average understanding of some of the jargon. So a lot of these started out as GPT wrappers, but as they started to see limitations in what ChatGPT could do, like in context windows where Claude
Hmm.
really thrives, and Gemini in particular, it has now, really thrives, like being able to plug and play with these other models. So they've become multi-model,
Yep.
not to be confused with multimodal. And because it's all text-based here that we're talking about
Right.
anyway for legal stuff. And then there's one in particular, Paxton, which is my primary legal AI tool of choice, that they also have their own proprietary models. Like Perplexity has its own proprietary model, but if you're
Yes.
pro, you could pick and choose with other ones. But I haven't found, like, Perplexity sticks you with that one. And that's my only experience with multi-model. So like Paxton, these other legal AI tools, based on the task, they will do a single model or a multi-model in the back end, and I, the user, don't really have to worry about which model. So are we seeing any of
Very
that
nice.
are we seeing any of that with the aggregators, or is that sounds like a legal specific thing maybe?
I think it's mainly a legal specific thing. You can do that with the aggregators, and you can often even compare them side by side, but they're often not going to pick for you what was best. They're going to just show you, all right, I want to do ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and run all of them, and I'll show them to you right next to each other, and you pick the one that's best. So if Paxton's doing that, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's one of these things where it depends, you the user, how much do you want to like modulate this and like
Sure.
actually do stuff. And for lawyers, a lot of lawyers, they just want to click the button. They don't
Right.
want to get into the
Exactly.
weeds.
Exactly.
I don't think that's just lawyers, right? Like, I wonder if these
Oh, no, it's
aggregators
not.
they're leaving some business on the table of like, we're just going to pick the best model. You trust us and we're the engineers and we're going to figure out based on your task, we'll run it through, the algorithms or whatever and use AI and figure out here's the best model for this particular task and just do it for you. Like, people may pay a premium for that.
Well, and I think that's probably what's stopping most of them from doing that, because a lot of the aggregator models are really focused on that $20 a month price point. And of course, if you're going to do that, while I agree, I think it's a great business model, you're going to have to charge more because you're going to essentially have 3 to 4 times the usage every time there's a query, because you're going to pay 3 or 4 companies for that. So my guess is that's probably behind that. But I agree with you. I absolutely think there's a whole lot of people that would pay a premium just to be able to go, look, I want to press one button and I want you to check all the primaries and I want you to give me the best response.
Right, right. And best is obviously it's subjective,
It
right?
is. It is absolutely.
But
But hey, we got to start somewhere.
you got to start somewhere. And the more specific you get with a particular industry, where say legal, where factually accurate is like the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that is, we always try to lean towards and favor that in light of our industry. So for the medical profession, it might be diagnoses, that we're
Hmm.
trying to see, and we don't want to be too restrictive, but then we still want to rank. And so I think for
Exactly.
some of these medical ones, that's a lot of that's happening in the background. Right. And there's always a place for these general tools, but I wonder if we'll start to see like maybe even smaller models and like be more industry specific as we move into the future. Like if you looked into your crystal ball, doing all the testing and exploring that you're doing, like What do you see is going to be in the near future?
I absolutely think we're going to see more niche specific LLMs or large language models that come out because of that exact thing you mentioned, that we're going to be able to say, okay, if you're a divorce attorney, we're going to have an LLM that is an AI that is specializes in divorce and family law. If you're a bankruptcy attorney, there's going to be a specialty one for that. If you're someone that does accident law, there's going to be a specialty one for that that's just fully trained. People are starting to already create those and market them. I think we're going to see a lot of the major players start creating those as well, that you're going to basically be able to get versions of them that are specially trained for specific verticals, 100%.
Yeah, and what's like the difference between like building your own custom GPT or like training a model like using a llama or using like Mistral or I it's
Hmm.
hard for me to keep track of everything because I try to just pay attention to the legal stuff, but you gotta I get wrapped up in some of these other
There's
things. So,
so much. Yeah.
yeah, so like what's the difference there and maybe like what's some of the benefits of each, cons of each?
Well, I think, to me, whether we're going to build a custom GPT, which for the audience, if they don't know, that's literally training an AI model on your data, the type of data you want it to know, or whether we're going to just give it some custom instructions are really very similar. It just depends on the depth that we want to go to. If I'm an attorney, I absolutely, at a minimum, want to make sure that I've trained the AI on my tone and my style. Want to make sure that it understands my brand just a bit so that all that's in there. And the good news with tools like ChatGPT, we can throw that into custom instructions. And I can make sure that every time I'm doing a query, it knows that my name's Jonathan. It knows what my phone number is, knows what my email is. It knows I'm a specialist and or specialty in this area. And, so it can have all that. It also may know what my personality type is. So when it's writing, it can make sure that if it's a letter to a client, it's writing in one tone, but maybe if I'm writing a brief, it writes in a different tone. All of that can be done in custom instructions. Beyond that, that's where we'd get into things like, okay, I'm a divorce attorney, or I'm a bankruptcy attorney, or I'm a personal injury attorney, and I need to make sure that I have something that's trained on the specifics of the law regarding, family law. And how do we do that? And while any LLM probably has a lot of information and out of the gate can provide a lot of value, when you start training it on your state specific law and when you start training it on even potentially, again, cases that you've run, and this is where I see a big change happening. I think due to privacy, we're going to start seeing law firms that are actually going to be downloading some of the tools that can be run locally because now you can feed it your cases from your clients. And keep in mind, I'm not an attorney, but I assume that would probably be okay as long as it's not getting out in the cloud and you're controlling it within your firm. I can now use all of that in any type of case law I want to really create amazing responses back to for additional work that I do. And again, sticking with the family divorce attorney, if I'm that divorce attorney, I can use all of that work that I've created over these years, and I don't have to have a paralegal or an admin to do all this. I literally can have my in-house large language model, my AI, do that for me. So when I need to write a letter because the wife's locked the husband out of the house and they're in the middle of filing divorce, we've already got 17 letters that I've written for that this year. I'm going to go ahead and follow my best practices, and 12 seconds later, I'm going to have a letter on how to do that.
And previously, it would have been associate, paralegal. Here's what I want you to do. Draft this letter, use these facts, use this or that, hours later or days later,
Yeah,
you'll have a letter. You go back and forth with them. You might have a letter in a few days, if not a week. Now, like you said, 12 seconds, and you could go in and fix it, or you could just tell the AI, actually make this a little bit harsher in this paragraph, do this here,
exactly.
and boom, you're done.
Faster than you could probably tell your paralegal or your assistant to do it in the first place, you can now have it done.
Right. And for like the super old fart lawyers that are like, well, I don't know how to interface with AI. Well, first of all, it's natural language, and yeah,
Exactly.
and you could just talk to it now. You don't have to type because a lot of these old lawyers have been dictating to their
Yeah.
paralegals or their
I do
secretaries,
that all the
right?
time. This mic sitting in front of me, I press a control key on my keyboard and I talk to it. And it's amazing how effective that is.
Yeah. You get two little buttons on the home screen for iPhones for if you're running the most up to date operating system on the newest phones, anyway. And one of them is the voice to perplexity for me because I'm just using my
Yes.
voice, right? But even if you didn't want to do that, you could dictate this to your
Hmm.
secretary and have her type it into or he have him type it into
Absolutely.
ChatGPT or the legal AI tool or whatever, right? So like that's how you could do it. So it's the easiest thing you could ever do. Doesn't take a lot of time, and I'm glad to hear you say it, Jonathan, that like you could train these not train the LLMs, but you could train through like prompting and train certain
Yes.
things and train it on your firm data. Because I've been saying you could do this, but I don't actually know. I haven't done it.
Yeah.
So now to have an AI expert on the show, yeah, that says that the technology is there that you could do this is really great.
Absolutely.
And your instincts were spot on, Jonathan, right? Like we can't do that and then give our clients access to that because at least there's a possibility that they might inadvertently access some confidential client data from another client, right? But
Exactly.
as an internal firm tool, this can supercharge your practice.
Oh, 100%. And I love what you said, Matthew, it's so true. Maybe you don't want to be the AI guy. I've got a great friend of mine. He's the same age I am. He's 55 years old and he's a sales guy. He doesn't want anything to do with AI. So I told him, well, make sure your assistant's got it then. And he goes, well, why? And I go, because your assistant will be able to do 3 times more work. He's like, what? And sure enough, he started it and he goes, oh my gosh, my assistant's got more time. She's asking me what else she can do. She never did that. She was always like, I'm too busy. And I'm like, I'm telling you, just empower your team then with
Yeah.
AI. You don't have to be the AI expert. Just give it to your team and let them use it. And you'll amplify what you're doing as an attorney or a firm literally by magnitudes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, time is flying in this conversation as I knew it would, but there's 2 more things I want to try to cover with you in the time that we have
Sure.
left. One is this idea of like what it even means to be an AI expert and where are you learning from and like what are you doing to learn and all of that. And we could talk about how teaching is also a way to like become an expert because you're teaching, you're
It
getting
is.
questions and all that. And then the other thing I want to talk about is, oh, you know what? Well, we're live and I lost my train of thought and I can't edit this out in the live thing. So we're just going to tackle those questions
I
first
said,
and
we'll do the first one.
I'll think about the second one the last thing that I want to cover. So yeah, so how does one become an AI expert? Because I used to hold myself out as an expert, but then I find myself finding, your content and some other people's content. I'm like, oh, they're the experts. I'm just AI enhanced. So I'm going to
Yeah.
start just saying I'm AI enhanced and just, learn from the experts and then bring the experts on my show so my audience could learn from them. So like, how does one actually, because I've watched a lot of your stuff and read your stuff, you're an AI expert. And so how do you even get there?
So, good news, bad news. If you're an educator, it's bad news. If you're an attorney and you've already spent enough time in law school, it's good news. You don't need to go back to school for it. And the reason is very simple. I have no problem with higher education, but AI is changing at a pace that I can't even describe. And I sit on the board for a couple of universities that are putting programs together, and they can't understand why the program that they wrote last summer, that's still not yet approved for done, is irrelevant now because it's 6 months old. And that's where AI is. So the good news is you don't have to go back to school. The bad news is you need to start using it. You need to start playing around with it. You're going to make mistakes. It's like anything else. I compare it to a toddler learning how to walk. We start off as babies, we end up rolling over, then we start crawling, then we sooner or later we pull ourselves up on the next to the sofa and we take a couple steps and we fall down and maybe we cry, maybe we try again, but sooner or later we learn how to walk. And that same process we need to go through with AI. You need to use it. You need to go, okay, I've got an email to write to a client and I don't, this is going to take me some time. I got to give the email you got from the client that you need to respond to AI and say, I need to respond and tell them basically they've got to be patient. It's not on us. It's stuck at the clerk's office and there's nothing that we can do, but I need to do that in a nice way with a smile. And AI will just like that, do that. And you'll have a great email that now you can take 30 seconds and proofread and review and it's done. And it's great because it wasn't emotional. The irritation that you felt because it's the 17th time this client has asked this, you don't have to worry about. You also didn't have to send it to your staff to do, although you can and empower them to do it. They then think about how much faster your staff or your admin can get this done if they have these tools, because not only that, they can be trained. My admin has a tool that's trained on Jonathan's style. So when she goes into my inbox and starts replying, and she replies as Yvette, which is my assistant's name, but she uses this tool to write the emails in my tone and my style, because that way when the clients get them, they're like, man, that sounded just like Jonathan. Well, it essentially was. I trained that. And between that combination, I don't have to do near as much of that work anymore. And that takes hours, literally hours a week off of my plate. And that's amazing.
And you could use that to do more revenue generating work or biz dev or content creation. And you're doing tons of content creation. And folks, stick around live because I'll be posting all of Jonathan's links in the comments section here. They'll be in the show notes if you're listening to this on the podcast. Or you could spend those hours just doing whatever you want to do, spending time with family, with that granddaughter, you know,
Yeah,
what,
whatever you want to do, that's
yeah,
the beauty of it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean it's really it's a fascinating world we live in today. I think like my kid, I'm thinking about this and I'm having this discussion with my wife of like how do we save up for like college, quote unquote college,
Yeah,
right? Like what will that be when my 4-year-old, you know, is going off to, you know, school for higher education or whatever it is there. Like we still want to save up for her to do something, but school is
sure.
going to be very different. And if it doesn't adapt, it's probably not going to be a good return on investment.
Exactly. And it will. I talk to education a lot. It will adapt, but it's going to be slower than it should be because and the problems that they have right now are really around teaching AI because they just can't keep up with it. But that'll get fixed. They'll get there. I find that most educators I talk to are very interested in teaching AI to students and teaching them how to use it responsibly. It's most of the institutions that are going, keep it away. And they're afraid people are going to cheat with it. Guess what? They already have these, they're already cheating. So you redo your lessons plans and figure it out.
So this is a reminder that for the last few months I've been posting these videos on YouTube, but for a long time my Substack subscribers have been able to see the video. And what Jonathan just did is he held up his fingers like a cross. So for the
Yes,
audio only listeners, I have to still keep them in mind because there's
that's a
a,
good point. Yes,
a
sorry, I
lot of
forgot
them are
about
audio
them.
only. It's okay. It's okay. I know you're a big video content creator. So well, the school thing though leads into my second thing that I wanted to cover with the time we have left, actually. And that is
Sure.
if you think about like back when we had to like a calculator was a human who
Oh
calculated
yeah.
math in their head, right? And when I was first learning to use Gen AI, I was just like, oh, it's just like a word calculator. It just gets you to the end result faster.
Hmm.
And I've been playing around with this idea, and I'm writing an article right now about this, that I am, of course, using AI to enhance the article because why
Hmm.
wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Of course. So, but I actually think I was wrong. And I think I was wrong, and here's why. Because a calculator can be programmed with an immutable truth. And I think this is the problem that a lot of like lawyers using AI get into, where they're like, oh, it hallucinates, or how people are thinking about generative AI, and it's becoming synonymous with AI, you know, at this point.
It is. Yes.
And because it's not a calculator, because language is messy. There is no immutable truth. Everything's subjective. We literally made it up. Like we use it to describe our world, but it's a made
Yes.
up thing. So you can't program a machine with something that's just a made up thing to always give a particular answer like a calculator, but we're approaching this like a calculator. So
Correct.
like how does that land with you? And am I doing an okay job of
You're
sort of explaining it?
you're 100% on target with that. Language is not as precise as numbers, plain and simple. The best example I can think for that, Matthew, is if you go to the library and you look up any topic, you're going to find multiple books on that topic. And some of those books are going to likely vehemently disagree with each other, but they're both talking about the same topic. They may even have the exact same facts. They may not disagree on the facts, but they're going to disagree on what those facts mean and everything else. And AI has been trained on all that data. And as a result, language is not numerical. It is not 2 + 2 = 4 every time, because as you said, we're describing things and we're using different words. And that's an important thing to remember about AI. AI has a degree of randomness that's built into it. So if you're looking to say, okay, I want to put together a legal brief and I want it to pull this exact text and this exact text and this exact text, you need a macro for Microsoft Word. You don't need AI. If you're looking for something to read data and to understand data and to based upon that to craft a really well-written brief that reflects your tone and style, AI is a great choice. But there's a difference between copy and pasting sections and putting together it in a formula, like you're talking about, and having something essentially free form and put it together. And that is your analogy is great. I actually think that's one of the best ones I've heard, Matthew.
I like in the legal space, this matters a lot because lawyers are like, well, I can't use it because it's not accurate. Well, it's not designed to be 100% accurate because you literally can't do it.
Exactly. And I want to challenge them. They can, but you need a fact checker. And again, if you've trained it on the right thing, it's no different than, Matthew, if you're writing a brief, you're not going to write every brief the exact same way that you wrote the last one. Things are going to change there. There's going to be little nuances that are different. If I ask ChatGPT or any tool to write me something 3 times in a row, I'm going to see those same things. It's going to have nuances. In fact, behind the scenes, it's creating multiple versions and it's already doing that and picking one that it thinks is best for us. So that's just the nature of the beast.
Right. And I created even like a quadrant chart that maybe I'll share before we're done here that you could critique for me. And that is, if one of these tools is industry specific, meaning that it's trained on industry specific things, and it's leveraging retrieval augmented generation to actually go and retrieve something before it gives you the answer, then you're significantly increasing the statistical
Hmm.
likelihood that what they're going to give you back is going to be factually accurate. And that's the
Right.
highest level of reliability, right? Second most level of reliability is maybe it's not trained on it, but it's still using retrieval augmented generation because you're actually having ground truth that it's looking for before it generates you an answer, right?
Exactly.
At least in terms of factual accuracy. It just increases the statistical likelihood, which is another problem. Like just humans, we have our mushy meat minds have trouble understanding statistics and exponentials, right?
Yes, we do.
It's a statistical model, the large language models. So,
Ab-
think about like the elections, and we're not going to get political here, but there were predictions that so and so candidate like was 80% most likely to win a certain state or to win the election or whatever. And this is always true, right? We just happen to be close to an election season. And then when that person doesn't win, people go, "Oh, they lied to us." No, they didn't. There was a 20% chance that the other outcome could have happened.
exactly.
Yeah, so it's hard. It's hard for I think people to wrap their minds around, well, this is a statistical likelihood thing based on language, which is messy and not immutable.
So true. So true.
So, all right, well, with that, let me see how this works. I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to share my screen here. I don't usually share screens on a LinkedIn Live, but let's see how this goes. All right, can you see this, Jonathan?
I can.
All right, well, let me get that out of the way. All right. So, what do you think? This is my chart. How reliable is the AI, right? Industry specific large language model. It's studied the material and it's an open book test. That's like sort of I tried to put it in
Uh,
the idea of like education, right? And, and and I'm also curious to know what you think about, like, I try to explain to the lawyers anyway. Imagine you're giving the task to a human, right? They didn't
yeah.
study the material, but they could go and research it, right? Well, that's the second most reliable type of human you could give a task to versus they're a master in the
Exactly.
subject matter and they could go research it, right? So these are the two types of AI you want to use when doing a legal specific task or an industry specific
Correct.
task. Okay. So I'm on to something there.
You're absolutely. I love this chart. I think this is very, very relatable, and I think I'm a big fan of four chart or four quadrant charts like this. I think this is great. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will share it with you so you could share it with your audience then if you like this. And
I
then
will. Yeah. This is. I think very. I mean, it's a great explanation of how that works.
yeah, and I really wanted to originally make it legal specific, but I think just any industry, right? Because
Yeah.
for
Absolutely.
yeah, some of these tools, like we are getting some industry like legal specific large language models, but they might not be implementing properly or in a useful way or at all retrieval augmented generation. Well, what would that be good for? Well, it still might be good for drafting contracts, but you will still have to go and
Exactly.
check it against whatever jurisdiction's laws may apply and what may or may not be applicable in that particular jurisdiction, right? So like there's still use cases for these closed book versions. And frankly, they're broader use. And like we were talking about earlier, some of these super broad use tools are great for broad use situations, right?
Hmm. 100%. No, absolutely. I could not agree with you more. I think it's a great way to look at it, and it's a very easy visual explanation of it.
Yeah. And I tried to make that using AI, Jonathan, but I told you I'm terrible at the image generation stuff.
AI wouldn't do it well because AI image tools don't do well with text.
Right.
So it would do a terrible job of that.
Well, that's why I ran into that. And I just ended up using a Canva template that I
I
changed.
was just going to say Canva would do it really easily. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. And lesson learned. Like I don't have a lot of experience with the image generation stuff because I'm just not in it every day. And so that I learned that, oh, it's just not getting the text right when I try to make it do it. And I'm not a visual, editor. Like I don't know how to edit,
Hmm.
graphic images. And so I can't go in and edit it either because I don't have the Adobe tools or whatever tools I need to go and do that. So I just get what the output is. And this is why I don't think, and I guess we'll round out the conversation here in the last 8 or so minutes, is I don't think anybody's jobs, like people are not going to be out of work. Just the type of work that they're doing will be changed and different. And the quantity and quality of work, I think, will increase, actually. That's where I see this going.
Absolutely.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, if you agree with me, then why? Why is it that you agree?
Well, I look at it the same way it was when I started getting in the workforce many years ago. They were replacing the typewriters with the word processor on the desk. It was a computer. And there were people that are like, no, I'm going to keep my typewriter because I like it. And that was great. And for a few years, it worked just fine. But other than if you need to fill out county forms or city forms or something like that, I challenge you to find anybody that's regularly all day long using a typewriter in any law firm nowadays. It probably doesn't exist because we're using word processors because it's so much more efficient and so much more effective. Did those people in the steno pool lose their job? No, not unless they insisted that they were going to die with that typewriter. And the same thing's going to happen with AI. Are our jobs going to evolve? 100%. Will there be someone who's going to be displaced? Yes, because somebody's going to hang on to that typewriter like an anchor and they're going to go down with the ship because that's just not going to work. Even by the end of 2025, I don't think you're going to be able to go, I'm not going to use AI. It's not going to work. We are already seeing a huge shift in the consumer mentality that they are understanding what AI can bring. And no longer are they buying I'm not using AI as a good excuse. Now they just think you're being old fashioned and lazy. And so even as an attorney, I think you're going to want to be able to answer that question. Are you going to use AI? Yes. And here's why. And here's how it's going to save you money and allow us to do the better job for you, because some of your competition is going to do that. And again, if you're the old fogey that doesn't want to do it, then just give it to your team and let them do it. It's okay. But you need to be implementing this because your competition will be.
Right. Absolutely. And so speaking about implementing this, thank you for the good segue, Jonathan. If if like somebody says, okay, like I want to learn more, who are the types of people that you work with in your company in Whitebeard Strategies? And how does it work if somebody wanted to, to hire you to help them out?
So we mainly do coaching and consulting, and we want to teach your teams how to do it. I'm not a delivery guy, so I don't want to be the one that's responsible to go through and figure it all out. I want to be the guy to help guide your team. And it makes more sense in my mind because your team already understands your business and all that. There's no need to do a knowledge transfer to my team just so that we can do something and then tell you that you've got to pay us money to update it later. If your team knows how to do this, even if that's just you have one admin, just make sure they understand the basics of what's happening. And our team is happy to help coach and guide you. I often compare it if I was going to go to Idaho and go fly fishing. I'm not a fly fisher and I've never been to Idaho. Well, I've been to Idaho, but only briefly. But I would go and I would hire a guide. Why? Because I want to know the right river to go to and the right equipment to use and everything else, not to mention where to stay and where to eat and where to drink. All of that I'd hire a guide for. You need to do the same thing. If you're not sure what to do with AI, it's okay. Do the same thing. Hire a guide, somebody that can help you implement it. But I want to encourage you, regardless of the size of your firm, not to hire somebody to do it all for you. Although that's tempting, you don't want it to be tied to another firm for this because AI is changing so rapidly. Make sure your team is at least up to speed with the basics so that all of the normal day-to-day stuff they can take care of and you're not constantly paying somebody else every time you want to make an update.
Right, right. And it's like the difference between, for lawyers, like bringing a lawyer in-house at a company full time, versus just hiring that outside counsel. And there's more and more attorneys doing what I do in my actual practice, which is the fractional general counsel, where I'm an ongoing, legal consultant for
Perfect.
the business because they don't need to keep up with all the legal stuff. Outsource that to somebody to help keep their business up to date with all the legal stuff. So it's kind of a similar strategy then that,
Same
that,
model.
that you
Yeah,
implement, right? But on the
exactly.
AI side of things. Okay.
Yep.
Fascinating. All right. Well, I got to ask right before we sign off though, do you do it on subscription? Like, is that an option for people to sign up?
It is. That's absolutely how we do it. 100%. Yeah. We're not hourly. We are subscription based.
Okay. Well, we could have a whole other interview about that. And maybe we will have like a proper pre-recorded, not live interview about your business model and the subscription model and how you leverage that as a, what consulting would be a traditional hourly style type thing. I think my audience would be super interested in that if you're up for it in the future.
I'd love to. Absolutely.
Okay, and maybe we just do it again live. And you guys don't even know my camera wasn't working before we got started. I haven't had any issues. So how about that, Jonathan?
This is awesome. Yes.
This worked out. Well, Jonathan, you just stick around for another couple of minutes here. We're going to go off live, and LinkedIn is about 5-ish seconds delayed. And so what I'm doing here is I'm vamping for the edit. So let's go ahead and end the live stream. And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.